All right, Mr. Bascom, how are you? I'm just going to run really quickly through the rubric and let you know what you should be finishing up with as you finish your Lewis and Clark expedition project. So you all have this, the directions and everything. And remember, I'm collecting a cover page, the list of 25 items that are relevant that you worked on, hopefully. Make sure the spelling's good, write it as neat as you can if you're doing it by hand. The map of the expedition, please make sure it's colored in, either with colored pencils or crayons. You can even use markers, but don't press too hard, and because then it winds up looking sloppy and clumpy. Make sure it's labeled properly. And then most importantly, the 3 separate entries, before, during, and at the end of the expedition. These key terms are really important. I need all of you to make sure you're using them. I heavily recommend the first time you use them that you highlight them, or you boldface them, or you write them in a different, very distinct font if you're typing them. You want me to see that you're using them. You want Ms. Covino to see that you're using them. You don't have to highlight them every time, but at least the first time. Remember, you need at least 10 of these key terms used by the time you get to the end of the project. That doesn't mean you have to have 10 in each entry, but maybe you have 3 in the first entry, 7 in the second entry, 2 in the final entry, something like that. As long as it adds up to 10 or more key terms used in a relevant manner. You don't want to just list them. You're trying to tell a story here, so I need you to use these terms properly and show your evidence of historic knowledge. This is a balance. It is a first-person narrative, so you're telling a story, and it should be an interesting story, but it also has to have that factual information, that historic knowledge, that evidence of historic knowledge, so keep that in mind. You all have the rubric. I just want to run through it really quickly, particularly the force. When it says first entry purpose, what we're looking for there is a compelling opening. If it just says, hi, my name is, that's not really compelling. It's not really grabbing our attention. Keep that in mind. Organization. I want to see how one event leads to the next. There should be that's that storytelling, that's that pacing where you're showing us that you're telling a story and it's interesting. It's going from one event to the next event. Development. We're looking for narrative technique. That can include dialogue or describing the scene and the setting a little bit. Pacing, the way it's telling the story. Some of you, I noticed when you were writing, you would say something like, oh, we fought a bear. And then the next day, wait, you just fought a bear. Tell us the story of that bear. How did that go? Was it scary? What did you do? How did you resolve this whole conflict? Or when you met Sacagawea, how did that go? How did you feel about it? What was anything said? Describe the setting a little bit. We're really looking for that for a 4. Elaboration, again, that talks about the key terms and having a list of supplies that are relevant and practical, that you know what they mean. Don't just write things down and then when we ask you, you don't know what they mean. Relevant for accuracy, relevant facts and details. Again, you're using that timeline to help tell your story and show that evidence of historic knowledge. Use the resources we've given you. And then for the geographic information, that map. It's dynamically drawn. When we say dynamically drawn, it looks good. It's attractive to the eye, and it has all the information requested. Really important with all of this, please make sure it's originally written. I know sometimes people are eager to get a good score, and then they wind up getting outside help, and then it's more from, the writing sounds more like the person helping you than your own. You use the words that you use. Write as the smartest version of yourself, not someone else. That's plagiarism, or that's copying, or that's unoriginal writing, and I don't want it here. That's for everyone else listening to this as well as you. Okay, I'm going to show you really quickly. This is a draft of a student's from some years back. Ms. Covino was nice enough to write down that student's work. And you can see they wrote actually almost 3 paragraphs. It's rather long. They wrote a lot of detail. And we're just going to show you how to close read it, how to mark it up. So I made a copy of this so that I can mark it up and not worry. This really comes as you're finishing it. You want to, really edit it and proofread. So you're reading, today we leave for our journey at last. I said my goodbyes to my husband and my boys, which I hope to return to soon. My hopes of this journey is to find what we're looking for, what we're traveling for. I fear the extreme weather conditions or vicious animals. We gathered our belongings onto the ship. Our mission, this expedition's a key term, to find a water route to the Pacific Ocean. So another key term. We've encountered Shoshone Indians and an interpreter named Toussaint Charbonneau, key person, that offered to lead the Corps of Discovery, key person. Charbonneau offered his Shoshone wife, Sacagawea, sometimes pronounced Sacagawea, Sacagawea helped Lewis and Clark identify what plants were edible and able to eat. Now, this student here kind of wrote it more of a summary, so they're talking about some things that had happened in real time. So you want to keep that in consideration. You don't want to be a fortune teller where you're predicting the future and writing about things that couldn't have happened to your character yet. And this student did that a little, but I'm showing it to you as a way to let you know, while this sounds great and there's good information in it, make sure it kind of fits the story. You're not writing about things that didn't happen yet, but overall good information. As we get to that next paragraph, we approached a running herd of buffalo, key term, on the Great Plains, key location. I was trained as a hunter to hunt all wild animals, especially buffalo. The fur of this animal helped us later on. It was winter on the northern prairie and provided warmth. Sacagawea made these brilliant shoes with the name moccasins. By February, Lewis helped Sacagawea give birth to her son. He was the newest member of our expedition. As we find a comforting place to rest, we are visited by a grizzly bear. The ones awake tried not to make sudden movements that upset the bear. As I wake, the others make a run for it. Me being the only one left, it starts to chase me. I rummage through my bag as fast as possible. As I reload my gun, I shoot the grizzly bear as quick as I could. It was a great achievement. We ate the meat of the bear and kept the fur. Lewis and Clark were in search of a waterfall as proof that they were traveling on the Missouri River. Key term. We found the falls. As I stared closely at the water, just above the spray was a rainbow. Near the Missouri Falls, it was difficult to steer our boats on such rough waters. We carried our canoes 17 miles around the falls. I was hungry after this, so I had to go hunt for something to eat. So this was probably their first 2 entries, and I felt like they did a really nice job. But one of the things I want you to make sure you're doing is obviously keeping track of the key terms. We can see this student had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 key terms. That's really good number. And they're telling the story in an accurate yet original manner. It doesn't sound copied. It sounds realistic. It matches a lot of the events that we saw on the timeline. So you want to keep that in mind. You really want this to fit historically what actually happened. You don't want to create make-believe history that didn't happen. That wouldn't help you. That would only hurt you. So overall, if I were to rate that particular student, I felt like their opening was good. It wasn't great. It did establish context, so I would have probably given them a 3, maybe between a 3 and a 4, because it was very good. It gives them good information, a lot of key terms. I liked it. It did build the story. It did follow logically, and it used a variety of techniques. It didn't have, it went from one thing to the next. I could follow it. I wish it had some more dialogue, okay? But it did do a really nice job of describing the scene when they mentioned the rainbow, when they talk about it as they were sleeping. So I'm going to give that a very high score. I thought they did very nicely there. There was plenty of key terms. The list isn't here. I didn't show it on this video, but they did do it, and it had a lot of key terms, and it had a lot of practical and relevant equipment. The relevant facts and details were definitely used clearly. So again, the student scored really well there. And again, I didn't show the map, but the map was vivid. It was colorful. It wasn't just Lewis and Clark Expedition with just the minimum requirements. It looked good, and that's really what I want from yours as well. So please, as you're going through this weekend, finishing it up, self-assess. Use that rubric to help you, and hopefully this little video helps you guide you a little bit more. Use all the resources we've given you on the classroom page. Use the slideshow, but make sure it is you. Asking for feedback is not the same thing as somebody saying, change this, write this. Please avoid doing that. I really need to sound like you. And even if it's not perfect, that's okay. We want to see what you can do on your own to the best of your ability by yourself. All right, guys. Hope this helps.